Welcome to the eCom Collab Club podcast, where operators, risk takers, and battle-tested founders drop the lessons that cost them time, money, and their sanity, and share what actually works so you don't have to pay the same price. Hosted by Peter Gardner and Adam Pierce, founders of the eCom Collab Club and Blend Commerce, the Shopify CRO agency, and proudly sponsored by OmniSend. Email and SMS marketing so good, it's boring.
So, shady comments, surprise and subscribes, caps lock complaints. No, we're not talking about Alan Sugar's Twitter feed. It's your support inbox on a bad Tuesday. Now, the question is, if you do get rage reply, or do you hide under a duvet? You turn that tantrum into a sales up. Well, today we are joined by Amy Anzel, who's gone from the Apprentice boardroom to building a beauty brand sold in more than 20 countries. Now, we reckon if she can handle Lord Sugar without flinching, she can definitely handle a social media troll, and she's here now to be live with us today. So right, kettle on, pitchforks down, and let's turn complaints into cash. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Good stuff.
And for anybody that saw the promos, Adam has decided to join us today, and he hasn't left me hanging just hosting by myself today, much to the surprise of Amy when she jumped on with us. Amy, for anyone who hasn't seen you sparring with Lord Sugar or wielding your browser, who are you? How did acting, producing, and a reality TV drama lead you to launching Hollywood Browzer?
Yeah, well, great question. So I moved to the UK back in 2009 after marrying a lovely Scotsman, and I was an actress back then. I did a lot of theater, musical theater. So I was acting, and then I fell into producing theater. And while I was producing, I was spending a lot of money in pre-production and not making much money yet until the show launched. So I got a job at QVC UK, presenting primarily beauty products, other brands' beauty products. And one of the products I was given was a hair removal device called the No. And I became an expert in hair removal. And I loved that job. It was like, live TV was like live theater. And I smashed all my airings, all my shows, did huge sellout shows, millions of pounds overnight. But what I noticed was there was like a 45% return rate. And I thought, what the heck? So I discovered that people didn't like a lot of aspects of what I was selling. They loved the dream of smooth, hair-free skin, but didn't work for everyone. It smelled like burning hair. It was expensive. So I basically thought, wait a minute, people want a dermaplaner, because this is what I was using, because it was very popular at the time in New York, in LA, in America in general. And I'd have to stock up, bring them back to the US. And then I thought, wait a minute, light bulb moment. Why should I maybe start manufacturing dermaplaners and sell them myself in the UK on QVC, etc.? And that was sort of the start of my journey. I thought, people want this, they deserve this, and they need it in their beauty regimen. This was not sold yet in any pharmacies, nowhere in the UK. So that was the beginning. And that was probably by about 2012, 13, I started to look into manufacturing. And then 2016, 17, I launched the brand, and now we sell on QVC UK, and I'm able to sell my own products and not someone else's. And that's how I started the brand.
So are you still the one actually on QVC selling it as well?
Yes, as often as I can. If I'm in town, I love selling on QVC. I mean, it's so funny because years ago, I remember people poo-pooing it, thinking, oh, you sell on QVC, how cheesy, how this, how that. And now TikTok Shop is basically QVC. You know what I mean? So it's so funny. Years ago, people would poo-poo me being on QVC and selling, and now everyone wants to be there. I mean, big brands, Estee Lauder's there, massive brands sell on QVC. It's just another channel, and it's a great opportunity to educate your customers and to bring brand awareness and presence into the world. So I really do love QVC, and if I can be there for all my airings, I'm there.
Yeah, awesome. So you've been there for a while now. for insights for other brands that haven't really considered this yet. And we worked with a big brand that used to sell a lot in America on PVC and TV. And it seems like the acquisition cost there is a lot lower than what people would expect, for one. And two, actually probably sometimes outperforms like social selling and things like that. Is that what you find too?
Look, if you could make QVC and TV shopping work for you as a brand, as a company, I say do it. The only problem is, and this could be a big issue for a lot of brands and companies, is the returns. You know, you have to accept everything is seller returns. So whether it's customer returns, whether it's returns from QVC, you have to accept them and have that be part of the business model. And hopefully you can still make it work. So it's a challenge for a lot of companies, especially as sometimes the orders are massive, which is like a double-edged sword. It's great, but then if you get that return, it's challenging. So I say, if you're a brand, if you're a company, try and make it work. It's the best opportunity to tell if you're a founder, to tell your story, to educate your customer, and to bring about more brand awareness and presence. And I also think when you mentioned to other retailers, we sell on QVC, I think they do think, okay, well, you've made it. We want to take you on and see if, we can also be successful with your brand or with your company.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people listening, and kick me if I don't ask you, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience on The Apprentice?
Totally. It's all fake. Experience on The Apprentice. I really went on there genuinely wanting to get this investment. I thought it's a great platform. I thought Lord Sugar would be a great partner. But unfortunately, when I got there, I discovered it's 99% entertainment and 1% a business show. I think they manipulate. The whole thing is reverse engineered. They know when they want you fired by, and they'll make up a reason, or they'll pretend something happened when it didn't happen, or you'll create some beautiful piece of artwork and then they present it as something different. So they're in total control of your narrative, which when you go on there, you're thinking, oh, I've watched this show for 10 years. I know I'll be a lot better than most of these idiots that have been on before me. And then you get there and you realize, wait a minute, I look like one of these idiots because the show presents me this way, or the show claims I've made these mistakes or did something that, like, for example, if you're coming up with a brand name, you'll come up with 20 names because they keep on saying to you, oh, that's already taken. We check with legal. You can't use that name. So that's why sometimes when you tune in and you're like, how could that marketeer come up with such a terrible name for that product? It's because the first, 25 names were rejected, and they only show you, coming up with your 26th quite lame name. So that's an example of how they make it seem pretty bad. And the thing is, if you say you're going to be amazing at something, like a task, like I actually think I was fired before TV shopping week. And I think man's rejection is God's protection, because I think to myself, if I was there and I was like, you guys, I've been doing this for 12 years. Don't worry, you're in great hands. We're going to smash this. Guess what would have happened? They would have gone, Amy, no one called, or they would have turned off my earpiece, or they would have claimed there were no sales. They would have done something to show that I was terrible at what I claim I'm great at. So actually, I actually think I escaped, a terrible disaster.
It's interesting though, because I think, look, we've spoken to people who've been on The Apprentice, we've spoken to people who've been on Dragon's Den, and I think the overarching, I think, response is that it is, like you say, a lot of it is constructed and not necessarily a positive experience. Just on a wider term here, do you think that kind of these shows that do purport to be about business, the way they portray business and entrepreneurship, is that actually a harmful thing, do you think, to e-commerce and entrepreneurship in general for the next generation?
I actually do. I totally think it could be so damaging to entrepreneurship, to entrepreneurship, and just the idea of starting your own company. Because I think, first of all, the dynamic is like, that's not normal. People don't speak to each other like that, especially someone in a position like Lord Sugar. Like, say you want to bring on an investor and they're quite experienced and they're like a Lord Sugar, would you be at the helm of like someone like that? I don't think that's like how entrepreneurs work with even older investors, you know, who might have had lots of experience, who come on board to help and to give you their advice and their insight. I just think the dynamic is terrible. What they portray is not real. I do think it's damaging and not really helpful to those who want to be entrepreneurs and launch their own companies. It's not how it works. I mean, what do you think when you watch it? If you watch it anymore, do you think
I won't watch. Yeah, I won't watch The Apprentice anymore. I won't watch Dragon's Den anymore because I think, you know, it's become more and more constructed, and I think, you know, I think even more so now, obviously, compared to the time that you were on it. For me, it doesn't represent business and what I see, you know, day in, day out of running a company. So yeah, I'm very anti those shows now, in all honesty. But at the same time, you know, look, people have benefited from it as well. So there are some smooths to it.
I think years ago when the show first started, because I did the first season of The Bachelor in the US, and I could tell you firsthand, that was 2002. It was truly as you saw it. There was no manipulation. There was no direction. There was no reverse engineering. I truly think, and I even spoke to the producers about it, and they're like, we had no idea what we were doing. We were just sort of documenting and shooting what was happening. And, you know, back then it was about the personalities with the people on the show clashing. Sure. And that made the drama. But now it's like, you know, 20 years later, they have to create the drama and the car crashes. So I think years ago, it was probably more real. Reality TV was real to a certain extent, but now it's, you know, almost 100% manufactured and reverse engineered and sadly manipulated.
You know, it is a shame because of the potential there for those shows to be great, to inspire people. And I feel like I'm kind of complaining a little bit here, but that, I guess, is kind of the topic of today, isn't it? It's complaints, conversions that we're talking about.
Good segue.
Yeah, and I wanted to sort of like dive into this because I think what I wanted to ask you is, can you think back to maybe when you had your first bad review that kind of, you know, gave you that gut punch? And I guess, you know, I imagine it was painful, but what in your mind helped you sort of flip the switch to kind of go into that sort of thank you for feedback mentality?
Well, first of all, as a brand owner, I took that complaint very personally, because I think of my products as my children, and it's like you're criticizing my child and the efficacy and I really took it personally. And I would be, back in the day when I first launched the brand, it was me, myself, and I. So I would take the time to first listen to the customer, acknowledge, empathize, sympathize, and then I would really go into why, like if they were complaining that, you know, the product is not effective, or the product causes the hair to grow back differently, I would really take the time to show them that I was listening, to respond. But sometimes there are people who just want to be haters and trolls, and they don't care what your response is. They're just so insistent. And I just you have to know when to leave it. But I do, and still do, with my customer service team, we do go back to every single criticism. And I did ask one of my customer service reps based in the Philippines, I said, go back, because she's been with me since day one. One of the best pieces of advice I was given many, many years ago when I first launched the brand was, you need an amazing customer service person/team, because that's going to make or break you. And that was really good advice. So, you know, when you're really thinking, where am I spending my pounds or dollars, whatever, because, you know, every pound matters, and it still does. Customer service was like, it was me and her, basically, when I first launched the brand. And I said to her, you know, years ago, tell me about, you know, one of our terrible pieces of criticism that someone wrote. And she said, yes, I went back. We send how-to tutorials. Like, usually the criticisms come with, they're not using the product correctly. They won't get the results. So she literally will go back. I mean, we even take phone calls. We do video calls with our customers, and we have a really loyal customer base, because that's usually how things start. And she was such a critic. And I remember I said, send me what she wrote, because in the end, we won her over. And she wrote, this is what she wrote. You've completely changed my mind about this product and your brand. Thank you for caring.
Incredible.
And so every person is so important. Every customer, like I say, there's going to be a few that just want to criticize, and they're not going to listen to your feedback and your responses. But that is very representative of our customers and where I think all brands should see their customers. You know, I know customer centric. People say that a lot. Obviously, Amazon's all about the customer, and the customer is always right. I do still believe that. I think, you know, a lot of people, they pretend they believe that and then they don't show it, but actions speak louder than words, and we show it all the time. If ever anyone like says we didn't receive our package product, we always send a replacement. Not a big deal. And if they get frustrated with the amount of time it takes, sometimes with duties, customs, getting through into other countries, we send them a voucher. You know, we literally never question. And, you know, QVC does the same. They never question, no questions asked. And we have a money back guarantee if they're unhappy. So all in all, there's nothing that's going to prevent our customers from loving us.
No, I love this. And I think, you know, if I think something what you said there, it sounds to me like you're saying, look, with a lot of brands, the complaints that happen or the gripes people have is mainly down to education, expectation, and the brand's job, which I guess is what you guys are doing, is making sure you do educate and making sure they understand what those expectations are. And I think it's interesting that you sparked my memory here. Now, I was in a conversation a few weeks ago with some supplement brands, and I think, you know, the main thing that they were talking about there was, again, is that education pieces. You know, with supplements, like, are we clearly telling people how long this is going to take for them to see a benefit? Are we clearly telling people how much they need to take for different situations they might find themselves in? So I think, like, that's, and I think, you know, you made that point there as well about jumping on things quickly and not being too, I guess, forceful about, you know, sort of, okay, this is just what we do, and de-risking, I think, you know, which is something that we talk a lot about in e-commerce for customers, by giving them that guarantee of no quibble. And I guess, you know, if you don't do that and people do have an issue, there's more chance of that building to be something bigger than if you didn't have that, isn't it, I guess?
And they always say that unhappy customers are the loudest. You know, if you're not getting back to them, they put it everywhere they can nowadays on social media, you know, tagging you and trying to bring you down in any way they can. So you don't want an angry or an upset customer. I remember many, many years ago when I first started the brand, a girl wrote to me on Christmas Eve. Well, she wrote to info at, and my customer service team was off. And I literally on Christmas Eve, I was trying to find her. She claimed, oh, I have this problem, this damage. So I found her a doctor to go see in her area because she claimed she was experiencing some discomfort. And in the end, it wasn't even our fault. She had some unfortunate skin issues that, you know, were not our fault after she used our product. So, but, you know, Christmas Eve, nothing stops me. Obviously, I'm going to go back to any customer who's upset or finds fault with our products, because I can stand behind every single one of our products, the quality and the efficacy and the safety.
Absolutely. And look, Katie just said here, I've just put this coming up, actions speak louder than the words. I couldn't agree more. You can spot the difference between a brand that cares and those that are going through the motions. And yeah, absolutely. And I think just on that note, I know you mentioned obviously the CS team there as well. Excuse me, Amy. So when you obviously get those coming in, those complaints or gripes, what's the process of quickly sourcing them into, okay, look, fix this ASAP, educate, and then maybe look, ignore the troll buckets? How do you kind of split those off?
So we leave a lot to her. She's been with me for 8 years since I started the brand. There's a girl in the Philippines who's like part of the family. And she can spot the trolls versus the genuine customers who are upset. We use reamaze, so she sees all the content, the comments coming in from all over the place, whether it's social media. She checks everything every day. She checks Trustpilot, she checks reviews, she checks website every single day without fail. So we never miss anything. And I think a customer, if they feel like they're not being heard or responded to, they get really mad and they start to try and bring you down online. And sometimes that really upsets me, because I know, you know, we do catch as much as possible, but sometimes if an email they sent goes into spam or junk, they get upset as if, you know, you're not responding. And we take pride in responding to every single comment, criticism, and review. So that, I guess, bothers me in that some things are beyond our control. But, you know, we allow the customer service rep that's really on top of things to decide for herself who's a troll versus who's a genuine customer. And like I read earlier with that customer, thank you for caring, they wrote, normally, and she CCs me into most of the responses she writes, just to make sure that I'm aware that there are issues that a customer is bringing to her attention.
Absolutely. Love it. Thank you very much.
So Amy, you've obviously got extensive experience with live selling. Now,
yes,
some would say that is probably the live pressure cooker test of an e-commerce website. You know, you're dealing with those problems in the live right there and then, and obviously still selling. So what has doing that taught you about objection handling on the fly?
So I'm so lucky to have a live theater background because it really lends itself to TV shopping selling, because you're live, anything can go wrong. I think in America, there is a little bit of a delay, but in the UK, not really. So someone once gave me an example, like in theater, if something drops on the floor, does the actor ignore it in the scene? Like if they drop, you know, a handkerchief, they just go and pick it up. Like the same thing in TV shopping. If something goes wrong, you got to acknowledge it. So, you know, luckily in all these years, I've been selling on TV shopping, other brands, and then my brand since 2012. I've seen everything, you know, sound going wrong, earpiece going out. And you just have to make do. And, you know, the customers love the human element. I don't know if you've ever been to a show and in a comedy, say the actor starts to kind of laugh and they can't, you know, they sort of, the audience starts to clap. Like they just love when things go wrong and they see the actor acknowledging it and breaking whatever they're doing. So the same thing goes for TV shopping. If something goes wrong, acknowledge it, mention it. I mean, the worst thing that people do, in my opinion, is if they're nervous, they go, sorry, I'm really nervous. Like that's the worst thing you can do. But in terms of like things going wrong, you know, make a joke of it, acknowledge it, embrace it. People love it. I can't think of anything in particular that has gone massively wrong for me, but, you know, stuff is dropped or earpiece goes out or, you know, but people, you know, we're only human at the end of the day, right? So customers like to see that human side of you. And that's another thing about TV shopping or TikTok shop selling, whatever it is. They want to see that human side of you. And often in TV shopping, when you tell a personal story, like how something relates to you and your personal life, they love it even more. So I always say, embrace whatever goes wrong because it makes you human and customers like it and it might lead to more sales.
Yeah. And do you find speaking to those worries and the anxieties that those customers have while you're on air about the product, do you find that the sales uptick at those points when you're objection busting?
Listen, I always say if one customer has that question, most likely tons of customers have that question. And I acknowledge that. And oftentimes we talk about the elephant in the room. So for me with the Hollywood Browzer, the biggest question I get asked is, will the hair grow back thicker, darker, and coarser? Because it looks like you're shaving it. And so I always talk about like myth busting, talking about, you know, issues that most people would claim they have. So I think when you talk about what seems like uncomfortable things, people like it more, and that does lead to more sales.
Yeah, 100%. Adam, looks like you want to say something.
I was going to ask, so Amy, there's quite a few, there's a lot of talk obviously about TikTok Shop. There's also some kind of live shopping apps that are around like Live Me Up that can obviously work on Shopify stores. Are those the areas that you're doing currently, looking into? Thoughts about those are the two channels as well?
So I'm really upset to have to say that we're having trouble with our TikTok shop ability to sell. There's a restriction right now on dermaplaners. Razor blades are fine to sell, but dermaplaners are not at the moment because they claim that the edge sticks out more than 2 millimeters. So we're trying to currently get around this red tape and restriction, but it's really killing me because we used to sell on TikTok Shop and we did really well. then all of a sudden they introduced this new restriction. So in terms of Live Me Up, I guess the thing is you have to make sure you have enough traffic to the website to garner that, time, energy, and efforts it's taking to sell live. I know it works for some brands. We tried it. It didn't work for us. So we are sticking to our QVC airings. Hopefully we'll go back to TikTok Shop Lives. Yeah, I can't speak for Live Me Up because we haven't yet seen great results.
And if you were obviously, you've got probably brands listening to this thing, and look, we'd love to try doing some form of live selling, whether that is on any form of channel.
Yeah.
What would you say would be, the key piece of advice about how to mentally prepare yourself for doing that, or if you are going to say, look, we've got an opportunity to go and do this, are there some kind of things that you would do before a live selling situation to make sure you're prepared for that maybe, hour-long session you were going to do?
Yeah. So one thing I've seen people, make a mistake doing is they don't have their products all laid out. So oftentimes you see people trying to find things and, have everything laid out if you're selling good products in general, and then get ready to present each and every one if you can. Also focus on, I've heard this a long time ago, features, tell, benefits, sell. So it's no point in going through all the features and not explaining how it benefits the customer. So I always found that to be really helpful. And if you watch a lot of TV shopping, especially in the US, people use it very formulaically. So features, tell, benefits, sell. It's like if someone goes into the ingredients of a skincare product, you kind of your eyes glaze over. Who cares what these ingredients are unless you know what's it going to do for me? Yeah. The other thing I was taught years ago is to whiz-gat a product. And that is what's so good about that. So what's so good about that product? I think, what have I seen before? People like selling a pen or selling a pencil. What's so good about that? Why is that going to benefit me? And the other thing I was taught many years ago was to use the word imagine a lot, because then you put that idea into your customer's head, like, oh my God, imagine if I use this and then my skin would be beautiful, radiant, smooth, and hair free. Imagine. So those are some tips I was given many, many years ago. And I feel like even all these years later, I still use them and I see the benefits. In America, it's really great on TV shopping how you can use a word or a phrase and then you see the uptick of your products being sold. And it's such a massive market. You definitely see that. In the UK, you don't really get to see that, live uptick. They just don't, in the studio, you see it. So in the studio in the UK, you have two screens basically there. You see, what's on live and what's coming up. You don't really see anything to do with your sales. So it's hard to repeat things that are beneficial to your sell because you don't get to see the real response of what you're saying and how you're selling.
Yeah. Are you using any of those tricks that you've learned from that, using the benefits sell? Are you using that stuff on your website as well within your copy, or do you have videos on site?
Always. We do so much in terms of infographics now for features and benefits. Always. Yeah. We also do a lot of before and afters. We're lucky because our product and the results are so demonstrable. I can literally dermaplane, especially a first timer, if I'm dermaplaning them or they're dermaplaning themselves, I often make them stop halfway because I say, stop. There's the before and there's the after. And that sells out. I'm so lucky that, the result is there and there's no downsides. I mean, I'm so lucky that this product literally has no downsides, only upsides. So for me, it's an education piece. But interestingly, over the years, now dermaplaning is a huge beauty trend. So years ago, I used to have to basically educate and beg people to try dermaplaning. Now, so many companies have jumped on the bandwagon, even the massive household names. And I have to explain why we're better, why the quality, but not all dermaplaners are created equal, why we're better, why we're more effective, why we're safer. and why, the blades we use are basically amazing premium German stainless steel and all the benefits and why that's helpful to a dermaplaning treatment. So it's so funny over the years how you just have to keep on, being aware of what's going on in the marketplace and just continue, moving forward and don't look back at, I once heard Oprah say, don't look in the rearview mirror. There's always going to be copycats and people trying to jump on a bandwagon. They might not be as innovative as you. And I find that all the time, these dumbos that are like wanting to just follow what you do because they see the success. But, it is what it is. I just have to accept that.
It's helped you move from education-based marketing to now being position-based marketing, where you just showing how you better instead of having to just educate the market.
Yeah, it's so interesting how that just evolved to become that. But yeah, years ago I had to beg people, and people were such naysayers, and now it's like, well, why are you better? Or, I can get a 10-pack for £3, and I'll be like, okay, we'll try that and come back to me. And oftentimes, if you look at our reviews on our website, we have like 20,000 4- and 5-star reviews on Amazon. We're so fortunate. And, customers will say, I used to think all dermaplaners were created equal. This is by far so much better than the generic, 10 or 12 packs I used to buy at the pharmacy. So yeah, or people will try us, and we're not that expensive. A single is £8.95, a duo is £14.95, and they last 2-3 months each. So it's really it saves money in the end. But people would say, okay, I can't believe I went cheaper. I'm coming back to a browser. It's clearly the best in the marketplace. So I let the product often speak for itself. And to go back to the first question, the naysayers. Now, oftentimes, we do respond, but then we say, if you want to go for a cheaper product, go for it, and you'll see the difference. And you know what? They do, and it's reflected in our reviews.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we love that. We have a whole folder of reviews about, why our products are better. So actually, you're giving us, helpful marketing content.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they come back to you, then they're going to give you that review as well.
Yeah, they call that like the boomerang customers.
Yeah. Yeah, just the wait and see customers. Wait and see, you'll be back. Talking about, I'm just going back to what you said earlier about anybody that's looking to start selling on QVC or any other live shopping. You mentioned that you've obviously got to be open to returns. Is there an opportunity where you guys get the opportunity to try and prevent that return with customer support? Or is it just, you've sent the product, there's no other communication, and that product comes back to you?
QVC has their own customer support, and they do try to answer questions. But sometimes, the customer just will order, maybe 3 different versions of your product, 3 different colors, and then decide in the end to return. It's just par for the course. We've gotten used to having to accept the returns. But we have as much content as possible on the QVC website to make sure the customer has those tools and resources to really consider before returning. So, before and afters, how to use tutorials, and all over our socials, all over our website. We're trying to always keep up with the latest and the greatest in our, content and making sure that they have the resources to hopefully not return. But it is part of the course.
Does that information that you've got on the website go out in the packaging and with the product that you send out?
So our packaging is here for those that are watching. So the before and afters are included. We put instructions on the back and look benefits, where as much information as possible, how to use. We are now in our new packaging going to have the QR code for videos. But it's tricky because we sell so much on Amazon, and they have various restrictions as to what you can include on your packaging.
Ah, okay. So they won't let you have a QR code?
I think that's a tough one to get. I'm not 100% sure. I know there's been issues before, but we're going to hopefully get around that or work with them on that.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know a few brands that I've spoken to have had issues that with compliance from an Amazon point of view, but I love that idea. And I think especially in your world, Amy, where you need that video education for people to make sure that they are using it correctly. I suppose the other side is about, we're thinking about here about sort of designing out those complaints, and obviously you're doing that, like you mentioned there, with the packaging. From a support team perspective, and I guess customer reviews and that customer feedback, how do you kind of bring that into product development or tweaks to what you're offering as you go along the process?
Well, I think in terms of technology, everything's always moving ahead so quickly, right? So years ago, there were no such things as QR codes. So now we look to put on our packaging as much as possible, anything to keep up with. And, this is actually quite old packaging. So now I'm a member of Buy Women Built, a great organization for female founders. And I know some people out there, the customers, they like to support female founded brands. So we're going to put the kite mark here. So anything that can hopefully promote us in all different ways and educate the customer, we try to include in our packaging. But, at the same time, you don't want it to be too busy. But there's lots to include nowadays to hopefully keep the customer informed and educated.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's that balance, isn't it? You're trying to educate and you're trying to get what they need, but at the same time, you don't want to confuse them to the point at which they're going to go, well, hey, what do we even do with this thing? What is this about? I mean, the other side of it here, on I guess the aspect of those questions that do come in, and I'm talking about complaints, I've got questions, FAQs, that kind of thing. Do you use those that do come in to sort of make tweaks to your product page, for example, as you start seeing more of the same question being asked, perhaps?
Absolutely. I think customers come first. And I actually have used so many customers' comments to help me develop the products. So for example, our traditional hero tool, this one, the edge, this bit, for some, if they want to shape their brows with it, they find this very overwhelming. It comes too low. It might, touch their lashes and then cut the So I thought, oh my God, that's a really good point. So what did I do when I was in China? I worked with the engineer and I made a smaller blade or edge for the brows. So not only do I use the customer's feedback and input and reviews to help us keep the website updated with education and great content, but I also use their feedback in terms of product development. And also another question I get from customers is, what do I do before to prep the skin? What do I do afterwards to make sure I get the best results? So I've come out with skincare now to help with their dermaplaning process and their treatments. So we have so many products in the pipeline to do with the skincare. We already have a post dermaplaning elixir to help with, the benefits they get afterwards, which is obviously the products they put on their skin afterwards will penetrate into the skin better. So, and anyone that feels any sort of slight sensitivity, it helps calm the skin. So we do have a great post dermaplaning perfection oil, we call it, to use after their dermaplaning treatment.
I mean, what's striking me, Amy, the more you talk, is that it feels like to me you're very comfortable in listening to what people have to say about your products and about your babies, okay? And I think it's something that, it took me and Peter quite a while to get used to, I think, as being business owners.
Yeah.
What would you say to those businesses out there, or those entrepreneurs out there that are still a little bit scared of feedback, scared of asking for it, scared of using it? Yeah. How do you kind of change that mindset?
Once again, it stems from my theater days. When you're an actor, especially in the rehearsal period, after you run the show, you sit there with the director and he or she gives you notes. And a lot of actors have to learn to take the note. They're very defensive. And as a matter of fact, if you just take the note and you can see afterwards why that note was beneficial to your performance, same thing with running a business. Your customers are giving you the notes. So just take the note, don't be defensive, and you'll see the benefit once you let that note be absorbed. Even if it stings or hurts or doesn't feel comfortable initially, you're like, after the fact, oh my God, I'm so glad they said that. because it's helped me and the products or the brand, whatever it is. So that's my advice. Take the note.
I mean, look, I think it's probably the same as in a relationship, isn't it? Ultimately, if your husband or wife give you some feedback about things that you're not doing, when you actually do go and take action, you do generally feel a lot better once you've actually done it.
Yeah. I guess you get thicker skin, and, over the years, you just start to really understand the benefits of taking on that constructive criticism. And also, as you get older and more experienced, it gets easier to give it. Sometimes, like in a work environment, you're afraid to give notes. You don't want to offend anyone. And then, I'm a New Yorker at heart, so I have no problem giving notes and being quite blunt. And my teammates, they know that that's how I am. And strangely enough, I've found some British people to work with me who love that and they're similar. Maybe it's rubbed off on them. I don't know. But I just think it's so helpful to have honest feedback and constructive criticism. It's like, that's the only way you'll ever grow.
Amy, I see you're a New Yorker and I match you as South African. Well, I raise your bet as South African. 20 countries. Adam mentioned this earlier. You guys are selling into 20 different countries. What's been the biggest and rudest cultural shock that might have gone, oh shit, okay, now we're going to deal with this type of customer?
Well, nothing really offends me anymore. So I think going into QVC Germany, that was a surprise when it came to the culture. They're really blunt people. But I took it on. It didn't really offend me. What we tend to do, though, when we go into different countries is we have local distributors. So they really know the culture better than we do. So all we can do is support that distributor. And then because they're also from that country or region, they know best how to deal with those sort of differences.
Okay. And so obviously if you've got different distributors, what else are you localizing on that side?
Well, we really leave it up to them. It's helpful. Like we're about to, we have an American distributor that we're about to get started with. And luckily I am American, so I can help in any way possible, especially with my video content, speaking from American to American. But I think overall, we really leave it to the distributor to help guide us, because we always think of distribution companies as partners. So we try to help them and they can educate us on what people in that region or country would best benefit from. And I'm lucky to have been on the QVCs all over the world, like QVC Italy. I had to speak in a certain way. Luckily I had a translator, but it was just, you learn the differences in different cultures. I can't do it in all 20 countries, but I can do it in the countries that I'm familiar with. But ultimately we rely on our distribution partner to really help guide us.
Yeah.
I was going to say on this front, I'm sorry, Peter, after you.
No, I'm all good. I was just going to pass a cheeky comment. We're good.
I wanted to ask that. So something that I find interesting, Amy, is that from my point of view, I obviously do a lot of sales calls for our agency, and I always notice that there is always a difference between some things that Americans just really get and things that Brits don't, and vice versa, in terms of what we do as a service. Have you found that with a product that, has there been any countries where they just haven't understood a particular benefit, or you're seeing that a particular market is using the product incorrectly in particular? I just wonder if there was anything that has come up along the way with that.
To be honest, we haven't had any issues in that respect. But funny story, we were asked to come to Japan via TV shopping. And I was questioning, I thought to myself, wait a minute. They know the facial razor concept. They know the cheap sort of versions they have in the pharmacies, in like the 7-Elevens there. Are they even going to get it? Is this going to be a massive, will it be successful, or will it just be a joke? And funny enough, again, we were allowing the distributor to guide us. And what they did was they kind of made sure the marketing message had obviously the Hollywood concept, because I discovered the concept of dermaplaning in LA. So they brought over a Japanese makeup artist who had worked on like Michael Jackson, and she was a huge fan of dermaplaning. And so they just changed the messaging and they revamped it so that the customer sort of saw it in a different light. And we were selling like hotcakes.
Awesome.
Huge sellout shows. So I guess that just shows you that you have to kind of trust your partners in that they know best. Like they wouldn't have brought us over if they had that concern. They then did some great Japanese DRTV campaigns. Once again, you think, oh, well, these people just see it as a cheap throwaway product. But if you make sure that you're approaching the marketing correctly and the messaging, you just trust your distribution partners or partners in general is the point of that.
Yeah, that's a great story and great example. And I think, people listening in as well, just thinking about those different processes that you've got and trying to localize it, maybe not in the way that you think the product needs, but the approach that you're taking.
Exactly.
I think is going to be different. And
it was eye-opening and educational to me because I had to like stop myself from questioning. I just sort of thought, okay, I'm going to go with this, take a leap of faith and just trust that they know what they're doing, because, I could have been a naysayer and thought this is never going to work. Forget about it. And luckily I didn't do that. I just listened to them.
Yeah. I mean, on the knowing point, and I wanted to move the conversation onto kind of thinking about sort of like systems, teams, sort of KPIs around sort of service. When you think about customer service, would you say there is a KPI or a metric that you are either insanely like wrapped up in, or maybe the other way going, look, it just generally needs to be X? Like, what's your kind of sense of how you're measuring the happiness of those customers within the company?
Return rate. If our return rate is going up, we're not doing our job, either in our messaging, our marketing, our education, our content. So we're so proud. Our return rate is something like less than 3%. It's tiny. Wow. It's nothing. I mean, also it's beneficial that the price point is quite low. So like, maybe if the Duo browser doesn't, they're not keen, they might gift it to someone, who knows? But the point is that our return rate never goes up. Both direct to consumer, even QVC, they let us know that the return rate is super low. So we're really lucky in that respect. So that's the one thing I look at religiously is the return rate.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, look, it's ultimately, it's going back to those core business principles, wasn't it? Because that really is the truest marker in terms of, okay, from a monetary point of view, people are voting with their money, with their cash that they're spending, and they're not paying or not, then it makes sense. I mean, the other side of this too is that when, you've obviously, I think, look, with your colleague that you have in the Philippines, who's doing a lot of the work to support you on that sort of customer service side, I guess with them, they know the product very well. They've been with you a long time. But I suppose the question that some brands might say is, well, look, we're using either, a more junior member of staff, or we are, maybe outsourcing part of the customer support that we've got to someone that we don't know particularly well. How do you think businesses can sort of empower those agents to do more of, okay, let me solve this issue rather than I'll go and get my manager or escalate the call?
Never escalate the call. No need, because they should have all the information in front of them. The FAQs they're always being updated. So whatever questions come in from customers, we make sure that they're reflected both on our website and in their standard operating procedures. So we make sure that all questions, all concerns are logged, so that we can understand better how we can answer them in the future, or be proactive about it, not wait for that question to come, but rather have it on the website, address it in our social media. It's always about the FAQs. I find that customers, customers are very vocal these days, right? So they'll tell you their concerns. And so if we get those concerns coming in, we try to then be proactive and pose them ourselves maybe you have this question or maybe you have that question, to sort of nip things in the bud. And then they feel like you're holding their hand. And we love that. We take such a personal approach. I'm the face of the brand. I stand behind every single one of my products. And there's never the chance for a customer to be, disgruntled and try their best to bring us down, unless they're a hater and a troll. And then there's nothing you could do about that.
Do you sell stuff online? Then you need OmniSend. Yes, that OmniSend. The powerful yet refreshingly intuitive email and SMS tool that helps you make $73 on average for every dollar spent. Like watching steady lines go up and up and up? Just automate your email and SMS campaigns with OmniSend. Set it up once, then sit back and watch the sales roll in while you snooze. You're still awake? Then go to omnisend.com/ECC. Give OmniSend a try and start getting sales so steady they'll definitely put you to sleep. Don't forget to use code ECC30 for a 30% discount.
Love that.
I was reading up, and I remember when KFC ran out of chicken a few years back in the UK. I don't know if you remember the story, but they were getting people calling the police on them because they'd run out of chicken. It was mental. The police had to tell people to stop calling us. It's just they run out of chicken. It's okay. It's KFC. But I think it was 700 odd stores out of the 900 that they had. And KFC just went, you know what, we're going to own this one. And they didn't do anything. And they just put a big ad in one of the newspapers. And all it was an empty bucket. So it was one of their buckets empty. And they just rearranged their letters to FCK. Written a little note underneath that. And it was yeah, we effed up. And we ran out of chicken. Sorry. We'll do better next time, basically. On that type of story note, have you ever had a problem go wrong where somebody's been vocal and they've been public, that you've been able to turn them around, or it's actually been, the classic saying, all PR is good PR? And have you ever had that moment with anything from your side?
Well, to be honest, luckily we haven't, but if we do in the future, we'll definitely use it to our advantage like KFC did. I think that it's so great to get negative PR as well, because you can always do something to turn that around. Sometimes it's better because people for some reason, I do find that people like to hear negative things, especially in this country. I hate to say it. They like to see you try to be brought down. And then you rise like a phoenix. So I would definitely say, yeah, use any negative PR and make lemonade out of lemons. Kind of like I had to do with The Apprentice. I was I thought, oh my God, I should have made it to the font. This is crazy. And then I was able to kind of turn things around and use that experience to my advantage and talk about that publicly. And people were interested in hearing my story. So I do think it's helpful to take your negative PR and try to turn it around to be beneficial.
Yeah, 100%. Because like you say, this has helped you launch the brand in any case. Although it wasn't the whole route that you wanted to go, you've eventually got to the same point.
Yeah, you mean in terms of not getting to the end of The Apprentice?
Yes, so not getting investment, you still launched your brand in any case.
And the thing is, it's not a good business deal, to be honest. $250,000 for half your company. It's like, if you've built a company, that's just not a great deal. I don't know, but nor is on Dragon's Den, they don't seem to be able to ask for more than 50 grand, 75 grand. Yeah. Shark Tank, I would look at. I think that's more of a beneficial program, and I think it's more the real deal, but who knows? Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong, but you can ask for millions on Shark Tank. And the thing that Shark Tank does that Dragon's Den doesn't is Shark Tank. So, because when I go home to New York to see family, I do have Shark Tank on. It's on every half hour from 7 p.m. to midnight.
Oh, wow.
A lot of reruns. But what they do before every show is they turn to a company or a brand that's been invested in, and they show how the show helped, basically that company skyrocket to, making millions, if not hundreds of millions. So I do think it's more genuine and there's more legitimacy there, I think. But who knows? I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, we've worked with a few brands that were on Shark Tank in the early days, and it 100% helped them. Even when they didn't get investment, it helped them, from the PR perspective. But I think that whole experience of going through that with potential people live on air has definitely helped them, because they ended up, going and succeeding despite not getting investment as well.
It's great PR. It really is.
Yeah,
if you can get there.
Do you mentioned this earlier that obviously some people were finding it around their eyebrows, they were finding the blade a bit bigger. Do you ever take in people that have given you that type of feedback that something is wrong, not quite right with the product, and then brought them in as like beta testers or brand ambassadors or anything?
We use our customers. We have a lot of loyal customers. And as a matter of fact, you probably can't see it, but see. Ooh. Oh, sorry. Are we still there? Okay, sorry.
Okay.
There are wide, I call them teeth. We actually came out with something called a microplaner, which have more narrow teeth. And we did send to our customers a pink one and a white one. One had the wide teeth, one had the narrow teeth. And we wanted to understand from our top 20 customers what they experienced when they were using one versus the other. So we definitely make use of our customers, our loyal customers, to help us make decisions when it comes to new product development.
Yeah. And they're normally the first ones to buy as well.
Yeah, we're always gifting our customers, making sure they feel appreciated. We just have so many great loyal customers. We call them our browser beauties.
Yeah, go. Love it. Awesome. Should we go into see if there's any Q&As, and let's see if we've got any other questions coming up. All right. Here's one for you. Most overrated customer service buzzword.
Overrated. Well, I just wanted to say that a lot of brands say the customer's always right, and they don't show me that. There's a famous line from the movie Falling Down. Did you see that with Michael Douglas? And he goes, have you ever heard the expression, the customer's always right? Because they're not listening to him. And he goes, well, here I am, the customer, and they're still not listening. And then he pulls out a gun and starts shooting everyone. So maybe companies should take that more seriously. Customer's always right.
That's awesome.
Only in America.
Most underrated customer service response.
Most underrated customer service response. You're right.
So you just lead with you're right, and then deal with it off the back of that.
We hear you. You're right. Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. We will get on. Basically just acknowledging. I don't think enough customer service teams acknowledge. You might complain, you might come to them with some issue, and they just don't really listen to you and acknowledge. And that's my problem. I just feel like, because I'm always a customer, right? So when I deal with some pretty big companies, I'm always disappointed and surprised by their customer service. I can't believe they're not more, there's some, I won't name names, but there are some big companies where I've had some issues and I've had to ask to speak to people much, much more higher up. Interestingly, my mother, I know we don't have much time left, she saw me having some issues with DHL, and she said to me, she's so cute, she's like, call the president. Just call the president, he can help you. These people are not helping you. Like typical Jewish mother from there, call the president. So what I did was I messaged the president on LinkedIn. Guess what? Came right back and solved the problem.
There you go. So your mom was right.
Mothers are always right. They have good instincts.
There you go. And let's just end off on one little light-hearted one. Live TV blooper, or moment, I would say, because you've obviously been on a few shows that you now laugh about.
Well, it's shown all the time, so I can't forget about it. I was sitting with one of the hosts at QVC UK, and she stupidly was opening up one of these. I was not selling our product at the time, another beauty brand. And she was trying to open up this cream and she used her mouth, her teeth, and the cream went all over the place. And it looked awful, if you know what I mean.
Sorry, man.
Hard to continue on after that went on live on TV.
I can sense people are straight into TikTok or Google trying to find that clip as we speak.
Oh, 100%.
It's out there. It's out there.
Was
it just pure laughter in the studio at that point, though?
Yes. Oh my God, we couldn't hold it together, but I think the customers and the viewers loved it.
Yeah, that's awesome. The sales sparked off the back of it.
Probably.
Awesome. Amy, look, thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed hearing the stories and everything that you've been doing to grow your business with customer service as your secret weapon. Yeah, thanks so much for the time today.
Thank you for having me. That was a really lovely chat. I really enjoyed it.
I appreciate it, Amy. And obviously, if people want to find out more about you, about the business, where do they need to go? What do they need to do?
HollywoodBrowzer.com, browser with a Z, and Amy Anzel with a Z. Anywhere on social media. I'm always open to comments, questions, and conversations.
Fantastic.
And she can get you connected to the president. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the eCom Collab Club podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and join our community at ecomcollabclub.com/community.